Hello my wonderful, beautiful friends, guys. Welcome back to r/MaliciousCompliance, where people follow exact orders to spite someone. And in today's episode, we've got coffee shop Karens, bad bosses, bratty 10-year-olds, raging idiots, and bad roommates all getting taught lessons they won't forget. Guys, I hope you enjoy the stories today. Don't shake your heads too hard, and as always, you can send or link your post to this email right here. Let's dive in. Many years ago, I used to be a shift lead at a locally owned drive-thru coffee establishment in Arizona. Awesome coworkers, awesome customers, and just an all-around awesome fun job. That said, there's a lot of lingo that goes along with being a barista. One of my favorites being the term breve, to describe a cup of steamed half and half with any number of espresso shots. It's my favorite term because of the following events. The day this happened, I'm working an early shift, Sunday morning, 6 a.m. I'm hungover from the night before, and the hot morning sun is scowling into my eyeballs through my squinted eyelids. I cradle my shift drink in my palms, like the lost holy grail. Cue the Sunday morning rush. Everything's dandy as myself and my coworkers bust out line after line of cars awaiting their delicious caffeinated beverages. It smiles all around until know-it-all Nancy arrives in her oppressively expensive Buick. My coworker approaches the Buick with the POS tablet in hand, and that's when the shenanigans begin. Their interaction appears tense, and she returns shortly after, appearing confused. My coworker says to me, she wants a 32-ounce ice breve latte. No ice, with a single shot. What do I do? And I thought to myself, oh yes, half and half with a splash of espresso. Now for those who are unfamiliar, this woman had asked my coworker for a 31-to-1 ratio of half and half and espresso, and she was apparently rather rude about it. It sounds like a job for the shift lead. Now it's my turn to talk to Nancy. I walk up to Nancy and I say, hello miss, I understand that you asked for a 32-ounce iced breve latte. No ice with a single shot, correct? That's when Nancy loses it and she says, yes, Starbucks does it for me all the time. It's just coffee and cream. How hard can that be? Your coworker must be so stupid. Now, she clearly wanted a cup of coffee with a splash of half and half, but we're now past the point where I felt obligated to correct her grave mistake. I was fuming, and my coworker, being in earshot, understandably bursts into tears and she disappears into the storage room. Nancy showed no shame. So I say to Nancy, okay ma'am. I then repeat her drink order back, word for word, once more, before she confirms with all the arrogance she can muster. And like my wage master says, the customer is always right. When I return with her snow-white beverage, she loses all of her crap. Gone, out the window. The woman's face glows beet red as she complains and says, that's not at all what I ordered. Are you effing stupid too? I just reply, yes ma'am, have a blessed day. I then shut the window and step back to watch her wide mouth lob obscenities towards the glass. Through her tantrum, she attempts to throw the 32-ounce cup filled with half and half at the drive-thru window, but it catches on the frame of her Buick window instead, exploding all that milky retribution into her lap and on her upholstery. With one last F you, she speeds off into the morning sun, never to be seen by myself or anyone else at the shop again. And the real kicker is, this was during the summer, so if she didn't have time to get her car cleaned out, it definitely smelled like rotting milk by the end of the week. My coworker felt better after I explained the events she'd missed. We finished the day joking and laughing about know-it-all Nancy and her big stinky Buick. Be nice to tipped workers. Thank you. Oh, that sweet, satisfying instant karma of the drink exploding all over Karen and the inside of her car, guys. Like I would have burst out laughing in her face if I was OP. That said though, I used to work in the food service industry and you learn real quick to always give the customer what they ask for. Don't assume what they want because you'll be wrong. Very, very wrong. As a child, I watched some figure skating competition on TV, and I decided that I wanted desperately to be a figure skater. So my mom enrolls me in several skating and ballet academies, put me on a drill team, got me a coach, and basically set me loose. Now, until then, I had been every bit the grubby, fishing trip going, grasshopper catching, pet snake having tomboy. Thanks to TLC, everyone knows that putting a bunch of rich preteen girls together in a competitive and looks-based sport always ends in tears and drama. And I had previously only ever hung out with mostly boys, so I had no idea what a social hierarchy was. There was one 10-year-old girl on the team, who let's call Tabitha, who was rotten rich. Her dad owned several companies, and her mom was like this gorgeous bombshell blonde French model. Tabitha was a huge brat, and to make it worse, her dad owned the skating rink that our drill team practiced at. So despite being a very mediocre skater and neither the oldest, nor the strongest, nor the prettiest girl on the team, if she wasn't front and center, she would bitch, whine, and threaten to have the whole team kicked out until the coaches complied with her demands. She basically ruled everyone, and before I came, everyone was terrified of her. So in comes me, the tomboy, roughhousing, powerhouse skater, but from a less wealthy neighborhood a distance from the rink. I wasn't super graceful, but after a childhood of running around the nearby lake with the boys from my neighborhood, I could push like hell in formations. So guess who got bumped down the row one spot to make room for me, who happened to be taller and stronger? That's right, Tabitha. That made me enemy number one, and Tabitha made an official proclamation demanding everyone make fun of me while in the locker rooms. Every single day we trained, they mocked my second-hand skates, home-sewn dresses, and they called me fatty. As I always had fast food as my training snacks, they tried to bully me off the team. Obviously though, a lot of girls weren't really interested in trash-talking the new girl, and I wasn't about to let them bully me out of my dream, so I made lukewarm friends anyways, with the girls who didn't badmouth me. This made Tabitha furious because no one was allowed to supersede her law. I had begun a rebellion in her perfect, glittery pink world, and she needed to whip her subjects back under her control. So you can imagine my shock when I came early to training, and Tabitha had backed a few of my friends up a ramp, with her two besties backing her. 8-year-old me marches right up to her with my half-eaten bag of fries in one arm and my jacket in the other, and I said something along the lines of, "Excuse me, why are you holding them up here?" At that, she turned and she gave me a smile as one of the other girls just smacked away my fries, sneering at me all the while. Tabitha then said, "I'm teaching them a lesson. I told them to not make friends with you and they didn't listen." One of the other girls on Tabitha's side backed her up and she said, "Yeah, they don't get to come down until they agree to not be friends with you." At that, I shrugged. If they want to play, I'm gonna play. I prided myself in being a bit of a rebel at that age, and I was ready to show her down. So I say, okay, I'll just be friends with them up here. I then shoulder past Tabitha and stand with my friends on the ramp. She of course loses her lid and she screams like the spoiled brat she is. She says, "No, that's not how this goes." She then stomps and throws an effing tantrum, waving her arms and screeching. And she says, "Fine, stay up there, but if anyone tries to leave the ramp, I'll punch them." Now, at this moment, I was really full from my lunch, and I felt a bit nauseous. So I knew for a fact that if I got punched in my stomach, I might hurl. So I devised an evil plan to get back at Tabitha. I said, "Okay, so if I want to leave, I have to get punched?" Tabitha then screeches, "Yes, I'll hit you." And I grin like the wicked witch I am, and I say, "Okay." I then walk right up to her and I snap, "Punch me then." Before I can even react, the girl immediately sucker punches me right in the gut. But joke's on her though. I immediately hurl a mouthful of half-digested fries, a cheeseburger, and a southern sweet iced tea all over her arm and her skates. I then stand straight up and wipe my mouth and walk right past her horrified friends to the rink doors. and get on the ice for warm-up without looking back. Tabitha is screeching like a howler monkey, sobbing like mad as her friends awkwardly shoo her towards the locker room to get cleaned up. My friends are laughing and they're following me to the ice, and the coaches are very confused. They walk past a sobbing, vomit-coated Tabitha before coming to talk to the other girls about what the heck happened. My two friends back me up, and I get off squeaky clean. Tabitha obviously evades expulsion from the team with the help of her dad, who for once reprimands his daughter for acting that way, and I keep my friends. The bullying and harassment unfortunately lasted until I got sick of figure skating, and I hopped onto a different hobby. I still gloat over that glorious puke-stained victory though. You know what? Props to OP for letting that brat hit her in the stomach. Like, I don't know many people who would on purpose let somebody hit them so they could hurl on that person. In my opinion, that was honestly sly, evil, and absolutely wonderful. Especially for an 8-year-old to pull off. But yeah, it's always surprising how mean little kids can be. And one can only hope that Tabitha grew out of that spoiled bratty phase, because there's only one thing worse than a spoiled bratty adult, guys, and that's being a rich, spoiled bratty adult. So to start, this is a malicious compliance on a customer from hell. On to the story. Around 2008, I was a club owner in Japan. I rented the place from a rascally old man who let me do pretty much what I wanted. The club had a motorized mirror ball in the ceiling, a pool table, and a projector left over from the former renters that the landlord said I was free to use. I made a lot of money using the downtime, setting up party space type events, weddings, reunions, and the like. The tables would disappear at night and you would have a massive dance floor. One party got a little too rowdy. During the festivities, the crazy host lady thought it was a good idea to pick up a chair and swing it over her head. Don't ask me why, she was very drunk. The arc of the swing launches the mirror ball across the room, sending it smashing to the floor in 1,000 shiny pieces. After my staff cleaned up the broken glass, she promised to pay for it, and I thought that was that. So I jumped online, found the same model, and added the price to their bill. About 3 hours after, a very angry host lady's husband shows up with receipt in hand, saying that I scammed the drunk host lady and he was going to call the police, shut me down, rabble, rabble, rabble. Our back and forth actually went on for quite a bit, and honestly, I was getting a bit tired of his macho in-your-face attitude. He then said that he would also talk to my landlord and get me evicted. I was at the eye-rolling stage at this point, and I sarcastically said, "Oh, don't get him involved. You'll regret making him mad." Unfortunately, sarcasm doesn't translate well in Japanese, and he jumped on my humor gaffe to say that I was threatening his life and he called the cops on me. The cops were totally professional, but a bit overzealous in responding to the call. 3 patrol cars and 2 bikes showed up. I guess the guy made it sound like I was in the league with the mob, and I guess the Yakuza, which was way overkill. They listened to us together, and then they separated us, and they each got a side of the story. Just to be sure, the police talking to each of us then switched places, and they asked all over again the same questions. Slowly, the cars, one by one, went back to work, leaving only 2 motorcycle cops with us in the back and forth argument. All very tedious. Finally, one of the cops pulls me aside, and he said, "Look, this guy's willing to pay for the damages, but only if you apologize for threatening his life." Being American, where we see lawsuits everywhere, I was very reluctant to say such a thing. So I walk back to the man and the police, and I ask everyone, if I apologize for him getting frightened, this whole business is done? The angry man has his arms crossed, with a macho, smug, "Yeah, say you're sorry" look on his face. The 2 policemen are also waiting for me to speak. And that's when I say, I'm really, really, really sorry. I am so sorry that you get scared so easily. Had I known, implying the man's weakness, I would have chosen my words much more carefully. And who would have thought that extremely polite Japanese can't turn into a slap in the face? The dude turns beet red, and I swear to you, the policeman on his left let his guard down, just enough to let the corners of his mouth twitch into a grin, just for a moment. The policeman then said, "He did as you asked, now it's time to go home." And then they herded him into his car. Oh man, OP's apology was perfect, wasn't it? Like, way to embarrass the husband in front of the authorities. And guys, I guess from reading the comments, there is absolutely nothing worse in Japanese culture than to take a cheap shot to one's honor and pride. It's apparently way harsher than any physical attack. So I guess OP destroyed that man. So in college, I had a randomly assigned roommate that I did not get along with at all. Our personalities were just on the two opposite ends of the personality spectrum, and we clashed a lot. The only things we had in common were that we went to the same college and we lived in the same apartment. That's it. Anyways, it was a nightmare living situation. The apartment had 4 rooms and 2 bathrooms. She and I shared the same bathrooms as our rooms were next to each other. We had 2 roommates on the other half of the apartment that we both got along with. After over 8 months of just pure passive aggressiveness towards each other, like sticky notes on her day-old dirty dishes, and her putting my wet laundry on the floor, she decided to report me to apartment management for bullying her. Honestly, we were doing it to each other. However, the apartment management took pity on her because I was tall and athletic, and she was 6 inches shorter than me and very thin. She claimed that I physically intimidated her and she was scared for her life to live with me. Now, she did this because she wanted to move to a new apartment without paying a $500 fee, but instead, the apartment issues a written warning. The warning stated that we were to not touch each other's personal belongings without written permission. The first infraction was a $250 fine. The second infraction was a $500 fine. A third infraction would result in eviction. I was so scared walking out of the office because I couldn't afford those fines, and she had the biggest smile on her face. I knew that she would immediately report me. I went back to the apartment and she left for work. I was mortified. And that's when I realized that she made a huge mistake. Everything communal in the apartment belonged to me, and she was a super moocher. I told my other roommates what happened, and they were shocked. I then asked if I could use their bathroom temporarily, and they said, of course. So I immediately emptied out everything that was mine in our shared bathroom. The shower curtain, the toilet paper, the rug, the towels, the soap, and I grabbed my magnetic whiteboard and I listed out everything in the kitchen that belonged to me. The plates, cups, mugs, pots, pans, silverware, coffee maker, toaster, pot holder, towels. I literally listed every single item. And I said that she's not allowed to use any of it without my written permission. I also drew some eyes to remind her that everyone was watching. I popped that whiteboard on the fridge and I went to my room to do some homework. Later, she comes home from work and she had a meltdown. She screamed. Not any words, just a blood-curdling scream. In the following couple of days, her father comes to the apartment to threaten me, saying that they're getting a lawyer and suing me. She bought her first roll of toilet paper and a plastic shower curtain, but it was way too much for her to handle. She went back to the main office to report my bullying once again, and was instead told that she could either deal with it or pay $500 to move to a new apartment. She moved out 7 days after the warning was issued. Good frickin' riddance, because a roommate like that is a nightmare. And seriously, a lawyer. Was dad really threatening to sue a broke college kid all because they took away their items that his kid was mooching off of them? Like, it's friggin' hilarious that her dad will hire a lawyer but not pay $500 to move his daughter. Like, that's logical. And this person shares their similar experience. So I've worked in a small barber shop for a year and 3 months now. When I was hired, I wasn't informed of the previous working conditions that I was to be filling in for. My boss / shop owner was 62 years old, female, and she neglected to inform me that her previous staff had some issues. One was a schizophrenic, gold digger who called everyone baby, and one was a former mayor who was beat half to death for sleeping with another man's wife. She also had this horrendous tendency of complaining about everything at work. Some days it was her grandkid, other days it was how her boyfriend won't propose. But when he did propose, she just wasn't good at commitment. There were racial slurs flung about, homophobic comments being made, you get the picture. Some days, however, she was extremely laid back and tolerable. I weathered through the rough patches of slow days and her bad attitudes. I attempted to discuss her issues in healthy ways so she wouldn't share them with clients. I even opened and closed the shop and covered for her when she decided to take random vacations. Eventually, things began to settle. Until about a year into working there, the woman became sporadic and impulsive, much more than usual to say the least. She would fly into bouts of anger and she would throw tantrums in front of clients for no reason. She decided to break it off with her boyfriend for not building her a lake house, and she hired a new barber despite us not needing one. She then began dodging haircuts she didn't like, and more. Yet, the final straw that broke the horse's back was definitely when she tried to sell the shop out from under us without telling us. The issue here is that she was telling the clients, but not her employees. The new barber was freaking out, and clients began leaving. And this was an issue I couldn't overlook. So as a shop manager, I took it upon myself to finally confront her when we were alone in the shop. I asked her what her plans were and what we needed to know for communication's sake, at least so we could plan appropriately. What I was told was, "Don't you worry, I have a plan. You guys can still work here." But that wasn't an answer for me though. So I responded, "All right, as long as you have a plan and you can communicate it with us, I'm fine with that." Well, later that night, she texted me the following. She says, "We will no longer be discussing my business. If I mention it to my customers, that's my business. When it has to do with you, I will let you know in plenty of time. So please keep your opinions to yourself. I am not mad. This is simply my business, and I would appreciate it if we kept it that way. If you don't like the way I run my business, and if I get on your nerves so bad, then you should not be working here. You should quit. From this day forward, I will do things my way, without any input from you. Thanks." So in short, I told her thanks for an answer, and I'll see her in the morning. The next morning, I opened the shop as usual, and I didn't say a single thing to her for the entire day. Halfway through, the new girl comes up, and she told me that my boss said that I'd been kissing her butt all morning, and I was giving her the silent treatment. My boss was acting shady because she knew I was up to something, so she left early that day to prevent a confrontation. I helped the new girl finish the day out, and then I packed up all my stuff in my car, and I left her a letter of resignation. I then texted her to say, "I've left my letter of resignation on your register. I appreciate the opportunity to work and gain clients. From now on, I'll be doing things my way, without any input. Good luck in whatever you do, and please do not contact me." Since then, I've been offered jobs by 3 different shops, and I've had clients from her shop contacting me, saying that my boss doesn't understand why I left, and she has shut down the shop completely. The new girl said that my boss was in total shock over me leaving. Where did that come from, right? Like, I just love how the boss was shocked after sending OP that long paragraph of her business being her business and that OP should quit if she didn't like it. Like, did that woman forget she said that? I wouldn't be surprised if she did though, because boss lady does sound a bit like she lost her marbles. So maybe it is for the best that she shut down that shop. This happened quite some years ago, when I had dizzy spells and I would randomly pass out frequently. Due to these dizzy spells, I was very hesitant to give up my seat on trains and buses, as I was afraid I would fall and hit someone or something. I would still stand up though if somebody really looked like they needed it and they asked politely, but I just didn't offer. One day, I was getting on the train and this old lady carrying a cane wanted to board too. A gentleman offered to help, asking, "Do you need a hand, ma'am?" The lady responds, "No thank you." She then swings her cane and she says, "I don't even need this cane, but my husband insists that I use it just in case." She then hops on the train. I end up in the same area as the old lady, in two of the very few open seats. After a few stops, a Karen enters. She had the haircut, the clothes, and the attitude. By now, all the seats are filled, and people are standing around due to lack of seats. Karen pushes her way through a few people, looks around, and loudly exclaims to no one in particular, "Will nobody offer a lady their seat?" Nobody responds. Karen then goes around complaining to a few random people sitting down that she needs to sit because she's been standing for over an hour and she needs to put her feet up. And I'm thinking, on a full train, okay. One person gets fed up and he gives her his seat, right across the old lady from before. The Karen now has a seat, but she has no place to put her feet up. She complains to the person next to her and to the old lady that these trains are always so cramped, and it would be good if people who didn't need seats just gave them up. The awesome old lady took this as her cue, and she made a point of standing up really slowly and carefully, grabbing her cane, clutching it tightly, and then saying, "You can have my seat. Your feet probably need it more." She then walked away very, very slowly, leaning heavily on her cane, and asking people to please step aside so she could fit through. Karen got so many angry glares at this point, and she calls out to the old lady, "You can just keep sitting here, I don't need it that badly." The old lady then replied, "You just said you needed it really badly, so take it." And then she walked to the next cabin. Karen couldn't see her anymore at this point, but from my seat, I could see the old lady standing up straight, picking up the cane and swinging it around again. I don't think many people saw it because everyone continued to glare at Karen until she got off at the next stop. The old lady really just wanted to teach Karen a lesson by complying and acting her age, making Karen look like a bitch. She's been my hero ever since. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of r/malicious compliance. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. If you did, hit that thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing so you don't miss these crazy stories. And if you missed the last episode on the channel, it's in r/petty revenge, where Karens won't stop stealing people's driveways and they get trapped for it. Guys, go check it out if you haven't. And myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.